Start everything peace meeting with a meditation. It's a good way for people to settle into their space. But as you know, I've been at the Fly Yoga School in Martha's Vineyard. I'm in the middle of a yoga teacher training program for international certification, and we have been studying B.K.S. Iyengar and many, and also the sutras of Patanjali. And there's a lot of information in that about breath work, about humble pranayama, and how when you work with your breath, not only does it bring you into yourself, but there's an echo from it that carries on after you're done with that focus. So not only is it kind of a gateway to find peace in your body, but to carry it with you. So when your attention's off your breathing, it's still kind of echoing through your day. So I wanted to, I'm going to use a couple of the techniques that I learned to present the meditation today really as the humble pranayama, the breath work, because I feel like it's a very palpable way that everyone can, tools people can use to find their peace in daily life. I had a very stressful morning, as it turned out, all kinds of things. So it was great because I had to like practice what I'm preaching, right? I had to sit down and use these techniques to find my peace. I had a lot of things that were not peaceful this morning, and you know, being on via Skype with Josephine, trying to sort out her technicals, and nothing was working. And, you know, I was like, okay, this isn't peaceful. So you know how life throws you things when you aren't looking and or at least expected. And you know, we all have, sometimes it's those small daily grind irritations that actually really disturb, you know, our basic state of peace. I mean, I believe personally that peace is our natural state of being. So yeah, so it's about how to refine it, how to remember who we are and get there. So while April is dealing with her technical challenges, welcome Mercury retrograde. Ooh, here she is. Yay. Right. Hello, April. Welcome. I'm going to unmute you for a minute. Let's see if that works. Hello.
Oh, I got
You're here. So turn up your volume a little bit. So nice to see you joining us. Here, let me, you can see my face a little better. So I was just telling Jan about the breath work I've been learning, humble pranayama, and how I'm going to start our meeting with a little bit of a meditation using those techniques from the Fly Yoga School. So everybody can, it's just a very practical way, wherever anyone is, that they can refine their peace when they're feeling stressed, or, you know, when the physical world is kind of a little too much in your face. So I always start the Think Peace meetings with a meditation, but I thought I would specifically work with the breath today to kind of start us off. So I haven't been able to figure out, I did a test run since this is our inaugural conversation, and I found the chat bar and it was there, and now it's not. So I can't see if anyone is writing in questions or comments and joining the chat. So yeah, so that's that, but we'll have a lovely conversation anyway, and I'll try to sort that one out. I'd like to introduce both of you. I'm just going to start with Jan. So Jan is joining us from Kapaau, Hawaii. She is a transformational healer, an NVC, that's nonviolent communication facilitator, and end-of-life doula. Jan brings her 35 years of experience working closely with her spirit guides and crystals into her transformational healing and personal empowerment sessions. Jan is also a compassionate communication NVC communicator and end-of-life doula. And I have posted your bios, picture, and links on the Think Peace Facebook page. So if anybody wants to look you up, I have your websites and emails and such. And then we have April Thanhauser joining us from Vermont. April is a plant spirit healing practitioner, storyteller, and visioning council member of O.N.E, the organization of Nature Evolutionaries. April lives in Vermont and the Cape Breton Islands, where she engages in and teaches communing with plants. A practitioner of reflexology and plant spirit healing, She is especially devoted to healing through limpias, spiritual bathing with plants. April is also a storyteller and puppeteer who delights in the cooperative making of community celebrations and ceremonies in honor of the natural world. In O.N.E, she welcomes the opportunity to work for the resurgence of our human awareness of the sacred in nature and our rededication to the interconnectedness of all beings. Welcome, April. Welcome, Jan.
Oh, hi, Jan.
So I'm going to have everyone you can either just relax your gaze or close your eyes. I'm going to go off screen for a minute and just going to mute everybody else. And I'm going to turn so hopefully people can see the sky for the meditation. It's very blue and beautiful today with big white fluffy clouds floating by my window on Martha's Vineyard. Okay, so I'm going to start our meditation. All right, so the topic today is how we find peace in our daily lives. I like to start finding that peace by focusing on our breath. Breath is the gateway to meditation as a way to restore peace. So take a few long, deep breaths and allow your body to settle into where you are. Gently let your eyelids rest. Relax your throat, your face. Come into this place and time. Join us where we are, this moment of awareness. Be aware. Let go of any thoughts, worries, concerns. You can create a box with a lid outside of the room you are sitting in. Place any concerns, uncomfortable feelings, or thoughts into that box and close the lid. You can open the box and revisit them later if you wish. Just draw your awareness to your body and to your heart center. Allow your breath to be normal, to return to normal, and just observe your breath as it flows in and out. Be aware of breath. Now, just notice each time you exhale. I just exhaled. I exhaled again. I exhaled. If your mind has thoughts, let them float to your thought box. Just gently bring your attention back to your exhale. Allow yourself to let go and relax your body as you exhale. Allow your belly to soften, your chest, your throat, your face, your back body. Let go, soften, relax. If you drift off, just refocus on your exhale. Feel the natural rhythm of your breath. Notice your exhale. I exhaled. If an emotion rises, allow that emotion to lift and move out of your body like a wave. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your breath, the natural flow. Be aware of your breath. Move into stillness. With each exhale, allow yourself to rest easy. Just be. I exhaled. A simple focus on your breath can alter brain chemistry, lift us out of the fight or flight limbic system into a calmer and clearer place, bring our bodies into a natural, aware, and peaceful state. With just a few minutes of working with your breath, you can calm the body and mind. When we are tense, we hold our exhale. Simply noticing our exhale frees up our minds and allows our bodies to regain a natural, more relaxed pattern of breathing. Continued breath work can raise us even further into states of pure unity consciousness. So let's take the breath a little deeper now. Notice your next exhale. Now consciously breathe into your chest, into your heart space. Inhale, allowing the breath to reach the back of your heart, all the way to the spine. Then gently, slowly exhale. Continue to breathe into your heart. Full breath in all the way through to the spine. Now allowing your breath to flow from the spine down your torso, legs, feet. Exhale gently and slowly. Release the breath. Full inhale, allowing the breath to move up and through your head, down your arms and into your hands. Feel that expansion as you breathe. Slow, gentle exhale. Take in another breath into your heart, allowing this cleansing breath to fill every cell of your body, flooding your cells with the light of peace. Slow, gentle exhale. Deep breathe in light, peace into the heart, filling the space between cells, flowing through and around your body. Just let it spill out through your skin, just like a waterfall of light. Feel your body, pure light. Exhale slowly and gently. Inhale light into your heart. Exhale gently. Inhale deep peace. Exhale slowly. At the end of your exhale, draw your belly in and up towards your spine and push out any remaining air. Just exhale a little farther, emptying out anything that needs to be released. You can make a sound if this helps you fully push out the stale air. One more deep breath in. Inhale the light of peace into your heart. Exhale slowly. And at the end of the exhale, draw your belly up and in towards your spine and push out any remaining air. Exhale a little further, empty the bottom of your breath. Allow your breathing to return to its natural state. Just inhaling and exhaling gently. And notice your exhale. Put your awareness there for another moment. Bring your awareness behind your eyes, allowing them to open. Just come all the way back into your body behind your eyes. So regulated breath stills the mind. The still mind meets pure consciousness. Pure consciousness can know itself. So just notice what you notice. Do you have more space in your body? Are you feeling more peaceful? Are you feeling a little lighter? We shall see how the cosmos breathes you rather than the reverse. The object has subsumed, swallowed up the subject, which is an end to duality. The end of duality that comes from meditation is the end of separation and the end of all conflict. B.K.S. Iyengar, Light on Life, Chapter 5, Wisdom, the Intellectual Body. So with Iyengar's statement in mind, how when we breathe, we actually meet the cosmos and the cosmos meets us, and we become the cosmos, which is the end of duality. Let's start there. So how do we find peace in our daily lives? Let's open up the conversation. I'm going to unmute our panelists. Right, and what I'd like to do is start with one of you and give you the floor for a while, and you can speak to us about your views on how to find peace in your daily life, and then we'll have a conversation after each of you has spoken. So let me go ahead and start with Jan. Welcome, Jan. Ash?
Greetings.
Greetings.
Greetings from the big island of Hawaii.
Great. So tell us
Yes.
how to find peace in our daily lives from your perspective.
I think that taking a breath and being aware of my breath and all of those sort of things have, come very natural to me. And so, but the thing that's hard about finding peace is when I lose my peace, like when something happens and, or someone says something to me that I find difficult. So, and I'm a very practical person. So what I want to know in my life is, how can I find peace in those moments? Like when I'm all alone, that's great. I just, close my eyes, connect into my higher self, or, however I expand myself, and then I find peace. And that's very easy for me. But what's hard is being able to find peace in the more difficult moments. And for that, I found that nonviolent communication offers really important things to be aware of, and it's given me a whole language, in order so that I can change the language of my inner critic, or my outer critic, the one who judges others, because it's really hard to find peace when in your head you're in judgment about everything and everyone. So, and what you're really wanting is to be able to accept, what is, and to be in the moment, to be more present. That's how I find peace, is bringing more presence into the moment. And so that's a nice thing to say and la-di-da, but the how-to, that's the tricky part, like, yeah, fine, okay, bring more peace, but how do I do that? And I really love the whole idea that I learned with Marshall Rosenberg about getting in touch with what's alive in you in the moment. For example, how am I feeling right now in this moment? In this moment, I'm feeling a little nervous because here I am talking to all of you, and you're here, you're there, you're at this time, you're at other times, and and it's hard for me to connect with you, But if I can connect first to myself, to this feeling of nervousness that I have, that's what's alive. I'm feeling nervous. Why? Why am I feeling nervous? Because my need for connection with you, my need for knowing that I'm being able to be heard by you isn't being met. And so once I know that beautiful need that I have, and all the needs are beautiful. We all have, all the same needs. We all share them. And that's like how you walk in somebody else's shoes, is by sensing what is their need, And because that need is beautiful in you, you can feel at one with them very easily. So I get in touch first with my need. My need is for connection and for contribution. I'm really wanting to contribute what I know about peace to you. And I'm nervous that I won't be successful and that I won't be as clear as I want to be. So once I know that I have this beautiful need for connection, then I can ask myself, well, what request could I make of myself to be able to, get that need met? Or I could make a request of another person if it was something like that. So in this case, my request of myself is just take a breath. So I could just take a breath in this moment and find, oh, yes, just as I noticed when Rachel was leading the breathing meditation, I feel lighter. I feel lighter knowing how I'm feeling and what I'm needing. It brings me into the present moment more deeply and more connected to the rest of who I am. My deep concerns for humanity, my deep love for Rachel and for others who seek peace. So that's kind of, just in a brief moment how that works. And the whole way that we've been conditioned in this culture, is why we have trouble seeking peace. Our culture, we've been taught the language of criticism and judgment and better than, and who's on top, and all of that kind of patriarchal language. And it's part of our mother tongue. That's what we speak. We speak jackal speak, as they say. We speak this language of judgment and all the time, and it's in our head. We're judging ourselves, we're criticizing ourselves. And in order to find peace from that, we have to change our language. We have to change our language into a language of connection to ourselves, first of all, and connection to other people. And how do we change our language? By getting a vocabulary of needs and of feelings, to know like how you're feeling in 1 minute. Very often when you ask someone, how are you feeling? They don't really have very many words. They'll say good, or they'll say, oh, I'm feeling stressed, or usually they'll say fine. And you say, oh, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? I'm feeling fine. And fine isn't really a feeling, And so I try to tell people, well, like, if you want to get into the feeling ballpark, think mad, glad, sad, frad. Frad meaning afraid, or hurt, That's the feeling ballpark, And so people say, well, I feel like you, or I feel like that, I feel that. And whenever you hear words like I feel like you, or in your head you hear I feel like you, or I feel that, that the next word that's going to come out of your mouth is not going to be a feeling. It's going to be a thought. And so we have this language that's so filled with judgments and evaluations and criticisms that we don't even know when we're expressing a feeling and when we're expressing a thought. Like, so how can you be at peace if you don't even know how you feel? If you think that what you feel is a thought, if you think that what you feel is that this person is annoying you, you know what I'm saying? And so we want, we want to have the ability to sort of bring, first of all, take responsibility for our own feelings and our actions, and also to make sure that we're not blaming, what's happening to us. We want to by taking responsibility, we want to make sure that what's happening or what we're feeling is ours, that we're owning our feelings and that we're owning our actions. And that prevents you from, if you're blaming somebody else, you can never find peace that way. It's sort of like, you first of all find the peace, you have to take responsibility for how you're feeling and what you are needing, and not expect somebody else to meet that need for you, but to find a way, and to find a way peacefully, not by coercing, but by making sure that you're asking for someone perhaps to help meet a need of yours by asking them in a way that they know would bring them joy, so that they're giving to you comes naturally to them. I really believe that we're all innately good, you know, that we're all innately part of God got us all it is, and that our nature is to be giving and loving and peaceful, yeah. And so when, you know, and so but we live in a culture where we're being taught that actually we're bad and wrong, and that we need somebody to tell us, to be the authority over us and tell us who's good and who's bad, and some people are right and some people are wrong. And you know, there's these standards of righteousness, these standards of, you know, competition, and that we have to live with. And so by changing our language, the language that we have inside, you know, we can come to see that all we really need to know is, how am I feeling and what am I needing in this moment? And if I'm having a conflict with someone else, if they're pissing me off or whatever, that it's about what I'm telling myself about that person, you know, that's making me angry. So, for example, let's say I'm let's see. So let's say I have a date with someone and they show up late, right? So I'm there waiting. Maybe I'm waiting at a restaurant. I'm sitting there waiting for them, and they're late, and I'm feeling all kinds of feelings. But mainly, what's going on in my head is this annoyance with that person, you know, because they're late. And so they show up, and I have a choice. You know, I have a choice of what I'm going to say to that person when they show up. Am I going to be pissed off with them? Am I going to say, hey, you know, I've been waiting here for a half an hour. You got some nerve, you know, but you don't have any respect, you know, for other people's time or something like that. But that's not going to create peace in the environment. It's not going to create peace in me either. But if I can get in touch with myself, give myself a minute, push in the clutch, you know, push in the clutch into, how am I feeling? I'm feeling annoyed. Why? I'm feeling annoyed because my need for respect and consideration isn't being met in this moment. And so so once I push in the clutch, then there's this spaciousness inside of me where I can make a choice of what I'm going to say to that person. Am I going to express how I'm feeling? Is it safe? You know, maybe this is a person, maybe this is a business meeting, and, you know, and that doesn't really feel safe to express to this person who I don't really know that well how I'm feeling. And so instead, I'll give myself empathy. I'll say, yeah, I'm feeling this way, and then bring myself to a state of peace before being with this other person, and then I may reflect on them of I may make a reflection about how they must be feeling being late, you know, that kind of thing. But if I wanted to express myself, I would simply say, gee, I'm feeling a little annoyed right now. I've been waiting for 10 minutes or 20 or 30 or however many, and wondering if you'd be willing to tell me why you're late. And so maybe that would cause them to feel a little ill at ease, at which point I might say, so I'm guessing that you're feeling pressed this morning because you locked your keys out of your car or whatever. And then it shifts because they feel that I'm connecting to them and that I'm interested in how they're feeling. So it brings, by being able to understand what their needs were in the situation, and because the needs are universal and I can feel them easily inside myself because I have this vocabulary, this language of connection, then the peace is made, and the ease begins in that kind of a situation. So you know, for nonviolent communication, there are these certain awarenesses that you have, and one, you know, observations, feelings, needs, and requests. So those are the sort of the qualities of nonviolent communication. So an observation is where, instead of really launching into judgment right away, you just see what the camera sees. So let's say, for example, somebody leaves the room and slams the door as they leave, you know, and of course that might cause you to feel, you know, afraid, you know, right away or whatever. But instead of saying, "I can't believe you slammed the door when you left," you could say something like, "When you slammed the door, I felt afraid, and I'm wondering, and I'm really needing safety right now." So you know, so knowing what you're feeling and what you're needing, and what feelings connect to what needs, because sometimes you've got a whole bunch of feelings and a whole bunch of needs, and you know, and to connect the right ones can be really a practice of self-knowledge. And what I always feel is that if I can't, when I'm having trouble connecting to somebody else, it's because I haven't stopped to connect to myself first, to see what it is, what's going on with me. And a lot of times, once I know what's going on with me, then I can shift my attention to what might be going on with them, and then make a guess. And if my guess is wrong, at least it has the effect on the other person of having them look inside themselves to see how they might be feeling. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but anyhow, it gets us closer to the connection, and the person feels that I'm curious about them and that I want to connect to them. And to prioritize connection, you know, not being right. That's the thing. So I'm so enamored with connection. You know, that's the peace that I like to feel, the peace of connection, because it's easy for me to connect to myself and for me to connect to my spirit guides and those kinds of things. But connection with others, that's scary for me, or has been in the past. But now I have a real commitment to that, and a feeling of well-being, and just of inner peace when I find that connection in others. So, you know, I'm really enjoying having time with other people when we all feel that connection, and prioritize that connection with each other. And, you know, now it's kind of a crazy time, you know, because we have such divisiveness in our society. And to be able to find a way to feel connected to people who are very different from me, you know, that's hard. You know, that's really hard. But if I can just, you know, sort of talk to myself about what they're probably needing, you know, then I can sort of walk in their shoes easier, you know, even if they can't walk in mine, doesn't matter. So that's the way to find peace when there's really discord, you know. Like Marshall Rosenberg, he was really great. He would go to very difficult places in the world, like Rwanda, for example, when they had the horrible violence going on in that country. And, you know, and he would go and counsel people and help them find their peace. And what he noticed was that people, even though they were all in the same situation of this horror, that there were some people who were finding their way to not use it as an excuse to create more violence, but who were telling themselves that they never wanted this to happen again, and what could they do to make it never ever happen again. rather than saying, well, you know, this, how could anybody do this to me and my family? Therefore, I need to do something terrible to them. And so it's, you know, it's always possible. It's always possible to make that choice if you connect to yourself first and find that peace.
Absolutely. I love that you were talking about how um, tuning into yourself and where you're at the moment, how you're feeling, and why is a great entry point to walking in someone else's shoes, and how that actually goes beyond how do we find peace in our daily lives to kind of the gestalt of think peace. My organization is how do we create peace on earth, and that, you know, finding where you're at and restoring your own peace is a step to relating to others and being peaceful toward them. Thank you very much, Jan. I'm going to let April have the floor for a little while now, and then we'll all talk about everything that you two have brought up.
Thanks.
Okay. Hello, April.
Hi. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Jan. I've just been really, really moved by everything you said, Jan. And I love that meditation at the beginning with the breath. Really brought me, as Jan was saying, back to those deeper parts of myself that are so nourishing. I also wanted to just add to that meditation a thank you to all the ancestors who brought forward this kind of wisdom, and especially to all the green beings who are giving us this breath, all the trees and the plants and the algae whose breath we are breathing. And I found when I was doing this exercise, it brought me really into connection, because when I did those exhales, I could imagine my exhale being the inhale of a tree or a plant. And this is a teaching that's in so many places, but for me, it's placed it within what I learned from my teacher, Pam Montgomery, when I was her apprentice, learning about plant spirit healing. That's where she started always, was with the breath, and knowing that we're sharing the breath, knowing that my breath out is your breath in. And that quote by Iyengar also was wonderful, because he's talking about not being separate from the universe. And the big thing, the big thing we need, I feel now, is to not be separate from the world of nature, to be restored to our primal connection to the world of nature, which is what, for me, really brings in my own inner peace. Just being with a tree, being by the ocean, being by water, just seeing the clouds out your window, even through this video, looking at those clouds out the window. Or on my little iPhone, when I look to see what Rachel has posted, you post a beautiful poem every day about the weather. It's such an example of deep connection to nature, and then making something beautiful from it. And so I really respect that. So, what to go on with what I was learning from Pam Montgomery, it's the act of becoming in contact with the nature beings, like both of you were saying, starts with our heart, and really dropping down below the mental processes and all the things that we're thinking, but going into that heart space of feeling. Very similar to what you were saying, Jan, is that's the place of connection. When we get into that level of the heart, and when we get into that level of the feelings, that's where we're receiving messages from the plant world, from the more than human world. And then they get translated into our thoughts, sometimes well, sometimes not so well. But we can hope to get clearer and clearer to receive the plant and animal and rock and ocean messages, and speak them as well as we can. So the whole world of plant communication has been a real gift to me that I've been learning slowly. And I always used to think that if I were really could learn to speak to nature spirits, it would be like the elves coming out of the trees and talking to me, and it's not quite like that. I wish it was, but it has to do with a very similar process of getting myself quiet enough to hear, but sometimes even before that, I have to do a remembering that from the world of nature to me is coming a vast resource of love, that I am really being held in the arms of Mama Nature, that I'm not the stranger, that I'm her child, that I'm just part of this whole universe, that our breath is the same breath. So that for me is the place I want to reach, to go to. So Rachel suggested I tell you a little story, and I have one. I found one. It's actually about the peacemaker and the white pine tree. When I was involved, well, I still am involved with Nature Evolutionaries, and one of the things we do is an initiation. If you want to, you can come to these plant initiations and go very, very deep with one particular plant. So in this gathering, we're together for 3 days. We're fasting. If you can fast, I don't. I eat nuts and things, but you drink a potion made from this plant, and in this case, it was white pine. And we were meditating with white pine. We were making offerings to white pine. We were listening to white pine. And in preparation for this initiation, I love to read stories. So I found this very strong, powerful legend about white pine and why it's called the Tree of Peace. It's a story from the Iroquois nations. And it said that long, long ago, the tribes were fighting each other. There was constant warfare. There was raids, there were revenge, there was violence, there was more violence, there were more raids, there were more revenge. And to make it worse, there was a being, a sorcerer called Totadaho, who was a being so evil his body was crooked and his hair was really strange. It was, a matter of fact, it was full of snakes, his hair, and he would take any conflict and magnify it. He would look at any division and make it grander. When anyone was ready to begin to make peace with someone, he would remind them of their grievances and use his magic and his words in all ways to make things worse. And it was into this environment of constant warfare that the peacemaker came. Now there's legends and mystery about where he came from. But when he came, it was clear he was a different being than anyone had met before, because his very presence just radiated peace. If you were with him, you couldn't help but be calm and peaceful. Now, he also had many words of wisdom to speak. He had laws of peace that he could share, and ways of living and ways of setting up an organization. But it said that he had a speech impediment. It was hard for him to speak. It wasn't easy and natural. So he needed a partner, an accomplice. And he found this in a person that we have all heard of, who's called Hiawatha. Hiawatha was a great leader and a great speaker, but at the time the peacemaker came, he was ravaged by anger and grief. He was made crazy because this sorcerer, Totadaho, had destroyed his whole family. And understandably, he was in a state of great grief and rage. So the peacemaker's first work was to restore Hiawatha to sanity and to a place of wisdom and forgiveness, so that they could work together and work together out of really deep knowledge of what it is to suffer, and no pie in the sky, just really getting it and getting beyond it. So the two of them traveled together from village to village, from band to band, from tribe to tribe, to like united. 4 of the 5 warring tribes, they all listened to the peacemaker in Hiawatha, and they wanted to embrace the way of peace. But there was this one last tribe, the Onondaga, where Rededication lived, the sorcerer, and somehow they had to find a way to deal with this. So he couldn't do it alone, to the peacemaker. He couldn't even do it with Hiawatha. He had to gather 49 of the strongest warriors who had committed themselves to the way of peace. And all these warriors came and encircled the sorcerer. They had all their weapons with them, their hatchets and their clubs and all. But the peacemaker told them not to raise those weapons. Instead, they sang a song. And they sang a song with a total focused intention of changing the heart of the sorcerer. And they sang a song of such purity and beauty and strength that somehow this being, this crooked being, became straight. He let them approach and comb the snakes out of his hair. He breathed. He changed right before their eyes. And they all could witness the great power of this peace, of the peacemaker. And they were ready to celebrate, but the peacemaker looked around and he noticed that everyone was still carrying their weapons. They had their hatchets, they had their clubs. And they also, in the back of those weapons, inside those weapons, there was still the hate, there was still the fear, there was still the revenge, there was still the distrust. And those things needed to go. So the peacemaker approached a tree. There was a tree that was taller than all the rest, the white pine. So you could see it from far distances. And wherever you are, if you looked up, you could see a white pine, and that could always remind you of this moment. So he uprooted that white pine and left a really deep, deep chasm in the earth and told everyone they must throw their weapons into that chasm, all of them. Hatchets and clubs and hate and greed and fear, all of them poured into this deep hole in the ground, at the bottom of which there ran an underground current of water that washed all these things away into the place that is never seen and is gone and is dissolved. So they all did. They threw their weapons into this hole, and then they were magically able to replant the tree. It grew its roots back, and it grew, in addition, 4 white roots in each of the directions. So they say that if you're willing to follow those white roots, you can come to that tree of peace, anyone from anywhere, from any direction. But at that time, it was the 5 tribes who were brought together. And just to remind them of that, and with the help of white pine, the peacemaker picked some pine needles. And if you looked at white pine needles, you know they come in little bunches of 5. So each needle is an individual, but they come together at the end as one person. He said, let this be a reminder to you as well, that you are one being of peace. He also gave the old sorcerer a job to do. We gave him some good work, which was minding the council fire. And then he went on to teach peace and to really bring a peace that lasted for hundreds of years and still continues. So I love this story for many reasons, partly because I love white pine so much. And in this initiation, I found that it's pretty much a universal love. Pretty much everybody loves white pine, and it's kind of the tree of childhood. It's the one that people remember climbing or lying down under or smelling the needles, and it's a symbol of all that we can regain really by just being in this cozy and loving connection with nature. And I think white pines are really step up to love us, and especially love children. It's the tree I bring my granddaughter to because she can reach those branches. They're down low enough she can climb. And I remember from my childhood climbing to the top of white pine. But I also love this little piece at the end of the story where underneath this hole, and the pine is strangely uprooted and put back. But in that hole, it's not just a hole where you throw things, it's a hole where there's a current of water. And I find in myself, I also need, I need water. I need its blessings and its nourishment and its protection and its ability to wash away all that isn't needed, to wash away my own particular weapons, which are tend to run in sort of fear, anxiety, nervousness, like we were talking about, all those kind of weapons that can separate me from other people and from nature and from myself. So I'm grateful for that little element of the story of water, and grateful for white pine, and grateful for all that we can do together when we really, really deeply make this connection with nature. And so just as a plug here at the end, I would like to really invite anyone who's moved to look into the organization of Nature Evolutionaries, whose real purpose is to help make this connection, overcome the separation, find the sacredness in nature, and find the sacredness in our relationships with nature and the whole natural world, and to really advocate for all the beings, of the more than human world. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to
Thank you so much, April. You know, I love, well, I love the entire story, of course. It was amazing. But for me, when you talked about how he transformed the sorcerer through song, you know, in the yogic tradition, Bhakti yoga is what covers poetry and music and dance and all of those forms of the arts, but it's actually the embodiment of unconditional love. And so it made so much sense to me that that would, resonating through those people's bodies, would be able to transform him cellularly out of suffering, is how I see it, and back into a state of peace. So beautiful stories always. I love your storytelling. Thank you so much. So we're all unmuted now. Again, sorry if you're on, for those of you that are on the call, but have been posting comments or questions. I cannot see the chat bar for some reason. I am a little technically learning. So, but we'll be able to see them afterwards. And there'll be a link posted to this on the Think Peace Facebook page, and also the chat and the questions and comments. And you can continue to comment and or give feedback on this conversation, and also on conversations you would like us, topics you would like us to talk about in conversations on peace. So great. So we're all unmuted now, I believe. Yep, yep. So yes, anybody want to add anything? Everyone's just floating in that, in that divine state of peace. Awesome. Dan, and anything you want to add to the conversation, having heard April's contribution?
I was really, I was remembering, well, Pam's a good friend of mine, and I've, really enjoyed many plant journeys with her, and it just reminded me of so many stories of my own, like of deep connection with the plant world, and deep gratitude that I have for that in my life. And yeah, so yeah, and also the other nature spirit energies that I've been happy to share my garden with, and for years, and that certainly is a big source. Connection to all beings, is a big source of mine, and I love being reminded of those journeys, those deep times when I connected.
Yeah, they're wonderful. The thing that occurred to me to add is the element of ritual.
Mhm.
And I think that in all of our peacemaking, there can be this element of ritual. I just, Jan, I just have been beginning to learn about NVC, and the book that I'm reading, it's called Ongoing. And it really recommends making an altar and engaging in ritual to kind of celebrate the moments of peacemaking, within and without. And when we work with the nature beings, often we engage in ritual or ceremony of some kind that involves some give and take, maybe making little offerings and placing them outside, as well as receiving all their wisdom. So I'm just curious how that element of ceremony and ritual and song might really be interwoven with the making of peace.
I find that ritual one of the most important parts of the world I want to create. You know, and so, you know, having peaceful language, you know, that's important. But in order to feel deeply connected to all that is, ritual seems to be the avenue of preference, and bringing that depth of connection through ritual back in our society and in our world is a very important part of my life. And the giving of gifts, you know. So let's say you had this amazing experience with a plant or with a person, and you received a great gift. Maybe you received a gift of love or forgiveness or healing. You know, you received a great gift. Then to be able to give that gift back to the world, you know, through nature, means that you're putting that joy, that love, that healing back into the world, into the field where others who are so in need of those gifts can receive it. And so that's, to me, one of the most important parts of ritual is the giving back, feeding the world, feeding nature with gifts that we receive. We just keep it going, keep the flow.
Keep it going. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that need for ritual and the connection to others through ritual is part of our common humanity. And I think it's also a rhythm of our daily lives, whether you're preparing the kitchen to cook or washing your hands, or, you know, these simple things in our daily lives that allow us to release what we're ready to release, or what is in the way of our peace. It can be as simple as a breath, or washing your hands, or sharing with somebody else, which is another common humanity ritual, is to reach out to somebody. I think it's innate in our nature to not be solitary, actually, which I really value nonviolent communication, because you know, I've traveled a bit, and I've been in places where I don't speak the language, and I've always been able to communicate, you know, through having an open heart and smiling a lot. Usually somebody, they're like, okay, she's not. Yeah, finding ways, you know, oftentimes those of us who do speak the language aren't speaking the same language to each other, or we're not, because we take our common language for granted. We're not aware of what we're really saying, or the energy. You know, I think people get the energy behind what you're saying, whether it's not so much the words, it's also what you're putting forth with the words. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Emoto's work, The Messages from Water, where he put words on water and it changed the molecular structure, and we're mostly water. And I don't think it's that word in Japanese or that word in English. It's your intention, what we know that word to be, like our energy that we put forth with it when we're interacting with others. And so that checking in with yourself, the way Jan was describing, it's really kind of that gathering up of your energy and emotion and your awareness of it, and finding that center within you when you're communicating, then you're relaying what you really intend to relay, not just, you know, your random emotions or as Eckhart Tolle calls it, the pain body. Oftentimes, we trigger each other a lot, and I think Marshall is a master of going into places that were very triggered and helping people find their center where they could really communicate from who they really were, not just the pain body, the collective pain body. So it's the honoring of each other in the same way that April was speaking to the honoring when interacting with nature, not just going and, gimme, 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 we're hungry, but also what, it's a relationship. So what can we get back? So I love going into nature when I'm not feeling particularly peaceful, because I instantly find healing with the nature spirits, but I also love going into nature when I am very balanced and peaceful, because then I feel like I can also, the river runs both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is really what Iyengar was speaking to. In breath, you're breathing in and out breath, but you're meeting everyone and everything in each breath. That's how we're designed. We're designed to find that place in us. That's our natural state. It's actually challenging to stay out of that state of connection, because we're really wired for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like the connection that we feel with nature is because we share the same needs. The needs for sun, the needs for, the needs for water, the needs for sustenance, the needs for safety, all those needs. We share all those needs with nature. Anything that's alive has needs. And so needs, serving life means serving those needs getting met by plants, by you, by your family, by the people that you come in contact with. And so service to life, service to nature, service to life is, becomes the sort of pathway in yourself and in others.
Life serving life, absolutely.
Here's to that.
Here's to that. Well, namaste. Thank both of you so much for being on the panel today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who's tuning in or who sees this as being part of this ongoing conversation on peace. Again, I'm going to link a post to the Think Peace Facebook page, so you can replay the video, you can give feedback. The link will be up by tomorrow. I wanted to just take a couple of minutes and talk about our next topic, because I sent this invite out to, I happen gratefully to know a lot of people that are involved in peace work. So many people were interested in being on the panel, but of course we can't all be on the same day. So I think we're going to have continuing conversation. So next month's live Zoom conversation is going to be on April 25th at 1 p.m. It'll be Eastern Daylight Savings Time, or anyway, at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. What I wanted to bring up was peace, our natural state of being. So in 2018, the UN Council on Peace looked at whether peace is a human right. And I'm just going to read from their declaration. The Human Rights Council Advisory Committee approved the Declaration on the Right to Peace after 2 years of intense work in close collaboration with civil society. This declaration included 85% of the provisions set out in the Santiago Declaration. However, 474 civil society organizations had rejected the declaration approved by the General Assembly because it did not recognize either the human right to peace or its essential elements. Neither does General Assembly Resolution 79/189 represent a consensus among states. It was approved with 131 votes for, 34 against, with 19 abstentions. Moreover, the General Assembly is aware that there's a scope for improving the declaration and to discuss the right to peace again in 2018, so they reviewed it again. So they were calling on all civil society organizations to support the Santiago Declaration and to continue promoting the Declaration, which defends the interests of civil society and the aim of persuading states to revise the approved Declaration on the Right to Peace. So what this means is part of the Declaration, and this was brought forward when the UN was first created, actually, that every state, any independent country would have a Department of Peace as well as a Department of War, and that it would have at least equal funding. So really putting in place that conscious activity towards peace at all times. So this is what the UN's trying to do, and they reviewed it again in 2018. And I found it very interesting that they were looking at whether peace is a human right. And think peace, our whole basis is that peace is our natural state of being. And so it's all about how to support that, how to bring it present in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, how to extend it into peace on earth. So that's what we're going to be looking at on April 25th. Hopefully I can get Josephine, who was a professor at the University of Edinburgh in psychotherapy. I have Geshe Lama Punso, who's the director of the Gaden Shartse Monastery in Long Beach, California, and James Lee Beamer, who is a spiritual healer and teacher, joining us on April 25th. So I look forward to seeing everybody for Peace, Our Natural State of Being, a conversation on peace. Stay tuned in, and until then, think peace, everybody. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. Oh, ring the peace bowl to end. Namaste.